Good afternoon, Racket Athlete fans. Today we have another podcast at the Racket Athlete Podcast. First of all, I would like to just talk about my sponsor, Tayside Stringing Services, who are based in Angus, Scotland, who are a racket stringing service. They also have their own website. You can just search them up on Google, Tayside Racket Services, Stringing Services, and also they have Facebook and Instagram. So today's topic is all about menopause and female athletes training patterns. And today we've got a menopause coach coming on to chat to us about that today. So welcome to the show, Angela.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
No problem. How's everything going? Good start to the morning.
Yeah, pretty good start for a Monday morning. Fresh out the gates from a big weekend outside.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Good.
pretty good.
If you just want to, we'll just start with you introducing yourself, what you're about, what you do, and how people can sort of learn about you from your introduction.
Sure, yeah. So I help women, individuals, and groups to not only alleviate the problems of menopause, which are typically physical. They can be very visible symptoms, and they can be very invisible symptoms as well that we have to deal with on our own. So I help people to feel less alone with that, and also to feel more confident in their approach towards it and who they're becoming, because it really does change us. It's quite a big transition.
Yeah, as I say, what I'm thinking today is I'll be getting very much educated on the subject as well. So, yeah, so it's going to be an interesting chat, to be honest, Angela. I'm quite looking forward to it
Great.
just to see what comes out of it. Yeah, so really, what I would like to start with, just basically from the basics to advanced, what is menopause?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I like that we are addressing this because not everybody does know. I think it's
No,
important to
I'm one of them.
be clear. Yeah. So thanks for having me on to explain this.
No, it's all right. It's
So
good.
in a nutshell, menopause is one day. It's a big word that describes one day, and it's the last day of our last menstrual period.
Yeah.
So the years leading up to that is what we call perimenopause. And that's
Okay.
typically when we might say that we feel menopausal, or we are menopausal, or we get the symptoms. We know
Yeah.
that things are changing. So it's a funny terminology that you can understand why people get confused, because
Yeah.
we say menopause when actually most of the time we mean perimenopause, the
Okay.
pre bit before that. And
Okay.
then postmenopause is the time after our last menstrual period. So
Okay.
it's all of those years in the rest of our lives, basically.
Okay. It's an interesting topic, and you addressed that pretty well, to be honest. Can you just chat a little bit more about the two aspects you spoke about, peri and post, just a little bit more, just to like give people that may
Yeah.
not know a little bit more understanding.
Yeah, perimenopause can creep up on us. And I've had lots of clients say to me,
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea this was happening. I didn't know it was coming. And, suddenly it's hit me like a brick. And I realized that I'm at perimenopause. I've had lots of those conversations, and
Yeah.
also different conversations where they've said, you know, I thought I was too young for perimenopause,
Mm-hmm.
because I was sometimes they say I was in my early 40s. I was
Yeah.
only 45, so I didn't
Uh-huh.
think I was there yet. I thought that was going to happen much later. But
Yeah.
actually, our hormones, as part of perimenopause, our hormones start to change much earlier than we expect. It's
Yeah.
happening really, and our body's getting ready for it in our late 30s.
Right.
And then it's not classed at that stage yet as perimenopause
Okay.
until some of the symptoms start to come in and show themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And they're so wide ranging that a
Yeah.
lot of people aren't really
Aware.
sure they're not sure if it's really happening or not, because it could be just stress, it could be a tough week, I could be just tired, or maybe it is because of changing hormones. So I help them clarify that and get to the bottom of that for them.
Okay.
So it can be quite a confusing time.
Yeah. Obviously you've just explained there how it kind of affects women's health and as such. So we'll delve deeper into the athlete side of it later on in the conversation. But I just want to touch on, obviously, like you said, there's various symptoms or things that they
Mm.
can cause that can obviously menopause can have on the body. What are those some of those things you've come across?
Yeah, they are very individual to each woman. There's some
Yeah,
common ones and there's some less common ones,
yeah,
and we don't all experience the same thing.
yeah, of course.
Most people, you've probably heard about things like hot flushes.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, I've heard
Yeah,
about that.
yeah, because most people associate menopause with being hot, or
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
get those awful memes and things that you see on social
Yeah,
media of
yeah.
seven dwarves of menopause. Oh, it's just, yeah,
You
I
don't
just want
like
to
it.
throw the no, I just want to throw the phone at the wall when I see those. It's just I
Yeah.
I've got no problem with having a laugh in life,
Oh yeah,
but
yeah.
laughing at people in that regard,
That
I
sense,
don't
yeah.
find that funny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, of course, yeah.
So yeah, getting back to the point, your question of what are those symptoms? Um, there are so many. Hot flushes is one of them. We
Yeah,
don't all get those though.
yeah, yeah.
We don't all get them. Some really obvious ones are changes to our periods.
Hmm.
So it doesn't go from doesn't generally for most people go from having regular periods all
Hmm.
the way through from teenage to 48 or whatever it
Yeah,
might
yeah,
be.
yeah, yeah.
It's different for everyone. It starts to change a little bit. So we might be shorter and longer
Hmm.
cycles.
Hmm.
So changes to our periods is dead common. The things that I help people with the most that I see a lot are things like changes in energy levels,
Okay.
feeling tired,
Yeah,
feeling angry and irritable
yeah,
and teary and
yeah,
emotional for
yeah,
what people say is no particular reason.
yeah,
And when we get talking about it, there are some reasons, but
yeah,
for them, they don't feel like they've got a reason to
yeah,
feel
yeah,
those emotions. So that's it. And the other one, one of the most common ones is sleep issues.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's delve deeper into the sleep issue one then. How often do you see that? Because that's obviously when we're talking about let's take it into a little bit of concept of like optimal performance in the body, for example,
Mm,
from an athlete status or just from a a daily living status. Sleep is the for me is the king to be
mm.
able to have your body in an optimal position every day to perform what you want to do, daily tasks, athletic movements, things like that. So, what would you say? What tip can you give with that sort of symptom to help people, women as such, that are struggling with their sleep in that phase?
Yeah, it is a tough one, and I totally agree what you're saying. When we don't have when we don't have a good night's sleep, we have a
A
huge knock on
challenging
to the
day.
next day.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then it prolongs as well, doesn't it, into the
yeah,
rest of the week. It's hard to
yeah,
catch up the older we
yeah,
get.
yeah.
So I take an approach for sleep and for most problems, issues that we get, particularly for sleep, to take an approach where we look at the bigger rocks, put the big rocks in as the foundation,
Hmm.
because they are so crucial. Um, so one, I'm just trawling through my head. There are so many things I could say, but I would say the most important foundation aspect of improving our sleep is sleep hygiene.
Okay, that's
So that's
interesting. I've never heard anyone say that before.
okay. It's a
Okay.
funny term. It
Yeah.
sounds like you've got to clean your bed, and I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah,
saying that.
yeah. I
It's
know, I
good to
know.
have clean sheets, but
Yeah, 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 yeah.
but that's
It-
not the
It's
whole
this
of it.
term I've never heard anyone kind of use before, and when it comes to sleeping and all that sort of stuff, so it's interesting.
Okay, yeah. It's one of the most important aspects because at this time of our lives, in our 40s, early 50s, we've got a lot going on, and it's more likely at this stage of life that screens, like phone and
Yeah, yeah,
TV and iPads and
yeah,
Kindles, have started to creep into the bedroom,
yeah.
and
Of
they have
course.
such an effect on our
Yeah,
sleep, not in
yeah,
a good way.
yeah. I know. So, for example, would it be someone do like blue light and things like that keep you awake?
Yeah. And also our exposure to light as a whole. So you could it's always good to take out screens and things from the bedroom phones and TVs, but also bedside light as well. Put it either have it on a very low setting. Not everyone's got dimmer switches these days, but you can swap the light bulb and switch to a red light rather than it being a bright white light. And red light has been shown to help with sleep.
Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that either. So that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, like you get you get like lamps as well now that are actually, as you're saying, they're sort of, there's light there, but they're not bright in your sort of right in your face sort of thing, right? Like there's, you get, for example, you get salt lamps now. I'm sure I've got one somewhere, and it's this is just a little light, but it's like a sort of calming sort of light that's not like right in your face sort of thing. So is that sort of the idea you're talking about?
Yeah, to reduce, what we're trying to do really is mimic nature.
Yeah, of course.
Because we over the centuries, over the decades, over our whole lifetime, we've gone further and further away from how our body has evolved to give us the best night's sleep.
Yeah.
So we need to just creep a little bit further towards how nature does it. We don't need to go back to living in caves. I mean, that actually sounds quite nice to me, but I don't think we really need to go that far. But we need to just acknowledge that the hardware that we've got in our brain that controls sleep, and it becomes more important at menopause, is like a really basic hardware. It's like iOS 2 or iOS 3, but we're living in a world which is like iOS 25 or 46, and there's a massive mismatch. So just changing up some of our routines and habits can make a huge difference to just creep that gap a little bit closer, so we're actually working with the hardware we've got rather than against it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's one thing I was actually going to mention to you about mindset and things like that. Obviously, with the menopause, that's a big thing. Obviously, you spoke about sleep. You've spoken about was it anxiety and things like that. Do you ever come across things like that?
Oh yeah, that's a big topic for me.
Yeah. I mean, let's delve deeper into a little bit into the mindset sort of stuff you deal with. Then, obviously, sleep is one of them, which is a big one. But is there what other ones do you come across?
Anxiety certainly lowered confidence as a whole, changes to how we feel it within ourselves. So I'm thinking of a few clients right now who've said to me in the first off, when we first started working together, that they weren't sure where they were at with perimenopause. They didn't know if they were in the middle of it or at the start of it, or how long they got left, but they just felt different within themselves. They knew something was different, and it was changing how they saw themselves and their view of their value in the world. And some women talk about, particularly towards the end of perimenopause and at postmenopause, some women talk about this sort of mask coming off and them not giving a shit about what other people think of them, and just really going for it in their lives. But it's not the case that happens for everybody. And I'm thinking of a few clients that I'm working with at the moment who almost have the opposite of that, and they are questioning themselves. They're looking for a tether. They feel a bit lost in themselves. So that can really affect their performance at work. It can affect the dynamics within a relationship. It can affect how they see themselves, their identity, and how that's shifting. So it can be a big deal, or it could just be a little bit of extra anxiety that you're having to deal with on a daily basis. So it could be on a spectrum of things like that.
Okay, that kind of covers the basis, like what you're talking about. Let's delve more into the athletic side now then. So female athletes, what's your experience with, obviously, clients that are like, you're doing sport at a certain level, whatever level it is, maybe regional, national, or international, anything like that. How can it affect the training of female athletes, the menopause stages, and we'll just delve deeper into that?
Yeah, because it's a whole life shift. And these changes within hormones don't just stay within hormones. They affect our whole body, the way it works.
Yeah.
When we're trying to train towards something, and for me, I class athletes as any woman who
Yeah, of
is
course.
doing exercise regularly
Yeah.
and working for them at a consistent level of
Yeah.
training, trying to train for something.
Yeah.
And it being progressive and following a program. So they might notice things like energy levels changing. They might notice that they are more susceptible to the changes around PMS or
Yeah.
PMT, or it means pretty much the same thing. So the weeks of how our fertility system is set up in the body, that we're not like men. We can't go hard at it all the time. Like
Yeah.
within
Yeah.
your training, you'd have a periodization, wouldn't you? You'd have
Yeah, of course.
harder weeks and easier weeks, and it would
Yeah.
all be set up. The
Yeah.
body is pretty much like that as well for women, so that our hormones naturally go through peaks and troughs
Yeah.
and dips through our month. And at perimenopause, we're more likely to feel that within ourselves and notice how that's affecting our training and our performance.
Yeah.
So there might be some days where you're down on your schedule to have a hard session, and it's quite structured, and you know what you're going in to do. And then you can start to do that, and you think, my body's just not responding. I just can't push through this.
Yeah.
So there are lots of women who are noticing that and thinking, what's wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? I need to push harder. And at that point, then I'm thinking, no, we don't need to push harder. We need to adapt and change and work with what we've got. It's not always that there's something wrong with you. It's the plan that needs to change, not you.
Yeah. So what I'm kind of gathering from that is it's a very on an individual basis with whether it's, athletes or, people that are daily living sort of stuff. It's all about restructuring yourself for what your needs are.
Yeah.
Especially like with, as we say, athletes, anyone that's consistently doing exercise or anything like that's got a structured program. There's going to come a week where you do feel burnt out, because it's happened to me. It's probably happened to you. You'll be like, oh, I've got 3 sessions this week, but my energy levels are just not there. So you have to adapt in order to overcome those energy levels, right?
Yeah, exactly. And look at it as a bigger picture.
Exactly.
That my body is changing. I can't train in the way that I used to 10 or 20 years ago. It doesn't mean I've got to, it's not necessarily that things are going downhill and you're never going to be able to do the things you used to do. You've got to change with how things are evolving in the body.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm just thinking of some research that Stacey Sims was recently talking about, and she's an athlete who is also a coach and a specialist in menopause, and she was pointing towards the fact that women, we are adapted anyway. We are naturally adapted well towards endurance. So endurance sports we typically do quite well as, and I'm speaking very broadly there.
Yeah.
So what we really need to do, because of the changes within aging and menopause and losing some muscle mass and these hormonal changes, what we need to do is lean on the fact that we are generally, we have a good predisposition for being good at endurance. So let's not do all of our training at that middle sort of zone 2 are just endurance sessions. Let's keep peppering it with the hard work, with the power sessions, with the speed, the short and sharp sessions, to keep the fast twitch muscles going,
exactly,
to keep the power there, to keep the muscles there. That's going to give us it will pay us back in performance around sport, but also energy wise and all of that. It's very much needed, that approach.
Definitely. The one question just popped in my mind there that we haven't really spoken about yet is injury susceptibility with menopause in athletes. How does that have an effect? Does that, I've not done a lot of research into menopause in athletes at the moment, but do you have anything to say about that?
It can have an effect. I'm not a physio, so I don't
Oh, of course, yeah, yeah.
really have lots of those conversations.
Yep.
But it can certainly have an effect because well, I'm thinking of things around joint aches and pains anyway,
Okay.
that a
Yeah.
lot of my clients, or some of
Yeah,
my
yeah.
clients, have talked to me
Talk
about
to you about, yeah.
changes in bone density.
Yep.
We've still got the same structure of skin and bone and cartilage, but the adaptability of that, the elasticity,
Yeah, of
the
course, yeah.
flexibility of all that is starting to change. So we need to keep
Yeah.
working on that. And if we don't, then we are putting ourselves forward to be
At
more
risk.
susceptible to
Yeah.
injury. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I think even more common than that is actually pushing through. When I was saying, like, earlier, that sometimes it is quite common that we'll see peaks and troughs in how well we're doing in our training, and then we think that we've got to go harder and faster to get the same results.
Mhm.
That can lead to injury
Yeah.
because we're overtraining
Yes.
and we're pushing too hard
Yeah.
and trying to do too much.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, nowadays, recovery strategies from my side of things are becoming more prevalent now because people are noticing you can't just work hard. You should be recovering just as hard as well, to be honest.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
to optimize performance anyway. Totally, totally get that. And it's a bigger thing now, recovery. I mean, there was always recovery strategies, but I don't think they've been pushed out enough. And now they're getting pushed more to understand more that the athletic performance is also about, recovery as much as working hard and doing the job.
Yeah, yeah. You don't earn recovery. You need the recovery.
Exactly. You
it's
don't. You
it's a
need it.
prerequisite. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. That's
yeah.
more what's getting talked about now. It's
Good.
more of a
Yeah,
need rather than, oh,
yeah.
you must work 100 miles an hour for a week and then you will earn your recovery. But I think
Mm,
now it's becoming more recovery as a must.
good. And
So,
it's even more important for women at perimenopause. We need longer recovery.
mhm,
So a longer recovery time, and also the things that we do to recover, we need a little bit more to be specific about that. So, for example, more perhaps drinking more water, a little bit less
yeah,
coffee, a
mhm,
little bit better hydration, more protein. More protein is going to
mhm,
help us to
yeah,
recover, but the body does need more nutrition. The nutritional demands on the body at menopause is greater as
yeah.
well. So yeah, it's
That's
quite a stressful time internally. We need to
yeah.
reflect that in what we're doing.
Let's actually, now you've hit on nutrition about women with menopause. Obviously, that's a good little topic that we could start talking
Mm,
about just now. I think. What's your opinions on that, and what's your thoughts on it,
mm,
and how you deal with that when you've got someone, for example, let's say you've got a client that comes to you and says, they don't understand why the body's not dealing with it in a good ways, and you notice it's a nutritional thing. How would you deal
mhm.
with it, and what would you give them
I would
advice on?
I would go in very gently, very slowly with any of the nutritional stuff. We do need to change how we eat, what we're eating as we get older. It's nutritional strategies and perimenopause and postmenopause. It's really needed and necessary. But if somebody comes to me and they're ready to make those changes, fantastic. Let's start doing
Yeah,
them. But
yeah,
if
yeah,
they're not joining those dots yet, then I've got
yeah.
to help them do that first. And the
Make them
first
aware.
bit is to get away from the diet mentality.
Yes,
Because
yes,
another thing within sports is that leaner is better and smaller is better. And gaining weight is absolutely
yeah.
the wrong thing to do, and we've got to get away from that completely. and
I agree.
and
Totally
these are
agree.
just, yeah, it's myths, it's harmful
Yeah,
things that have just perpetuated the scene for far too long.
yeah,
So the diet mentality really needs to go. Calories are not earned. We need the food. I'm not a fan of the ketogenic stuff, the
yeah, yeah,
ultra low carb, the long
yeah,
fasting. I'm not
yeah,
a fan
yeah,
of
yeah.
those at all.
No.
Yeah.
But I think like that's a good topic we've actually spoken about. Now I've just thought of another question that may be a good one to talk about. When it comes to obviously like all the stuff I've gathered from what you said just now, and obviously when we started, I'm gathering a picture now of image. So the
Mm,
image that's going out from TVs, from magazines, from apps and things that are going out to women that are obviously dealing with menopause. Do
yeah.
you feel that that kind of have an effect on them as well?
Yes, massively. I've spoken to women who feel quite marginalized. Some women are very relieved that menopause is, well, many women are relieved that menopause is finally being spoken about. I'm one of them. I'm
Yes.
in perimenopause, so I think
Yeah.
it's great that we're talking more about it, and we've got people to look towards. There are high profile figures in the media who are talking about their own experiences, which is great. I've also spoken to women who feel marginalized and cannot relate to these high profile, often celebrities talking about their experiences and
Mm-hmm.
promoting their way of doing things,
Mm-hmm.
which don't match my clients'
Yeah.
ideals
Yes.
or their reality or
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
available to
Yeah.
them, and they feel like, well, it's all right for them, but I'm stuck here with my
Yeah.
5 kids and I haven't got
Yeah.
a personal trainer and a
Yeah.
nutritionist to help me out.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
so that could be, yeah, less helpful when it's done in that way.
Yeah. So I think as well, yeah, that's a big thing. I mean, the image that goes out. I want to talk about this a little bit more actually, because it's for me, it's a bugbear as well.
Sure.
Even for men as well. Like on that topic,
Yeah.
I mean, I think everything should be more about individualizing um, for the person that's you're dealing with in front of you. Because a lot of the
Mm.
stuff that goes out now on TV and everything like that, it's all like this is just my opinion. I'm not saying it's the correct, but it seems to be it's all like one standard generalized, and this is how this it should
Mm.
be. But I just don't agree with it.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be tricky because there are some things that will help us all.
Yeah,
My foundational framework is essential for all women,
yeah, of
and
course.
it's not that my way is the only way. It's
Yeah,
it's that I
that
know I've
those
been
blocks
doing
will
this.
help.
Yeah, it's the foundational approach. I've been doing this for nearly 8 years, and I've seen a lot of changes in that time. I've seen things come and go. I've
Yeah,
spoken to hundreds of women. There are lots of different routes out there. There's no one fix all, not even hormone therapy is going to solve everything. We need to put some things in place at that foundational level and
yeah,
then build stuff on top. So I
yes,
see that foundational level at the bottom, things like the way that we move or our habits around exercise, things that we're eating, how we see ourselves, what's important for us now. Those kind of things are fundamental,
yes,
and
definitely. I
then
agree.
they can be personalized because,
Yes,
you know, I'm not a fan of one diet for all, one,
no,
you know,
no, I'm not like
everybody
that
eat
either.
the same way. It just doesn't really, it's not realistic, is it?
It's not,
So
and
those aspects can be personalized. Yeah.
it's definitely not realistic. And it's also more to the fact, if you want to get more scientific about it, the body chemistry, how your mind works individually. You think differently to other people.
Yeah.
Your body works differently to other people's. As you say, I believe that everyone is unique in their own way, and how the body works and how
Yeah,
they think and everything
absolutely.
like that. So it's going to have an effect on the results of what you're offering them. And if it doesn't work for them,
Yeah.
then it's obviously not right for them.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. It's
Um,
very individual. We've all got to find our route through this and to be able to
exactly.
find our way back to our own version of normal.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
there's some common approaches that will work for us all, but it's got to
yes,
be done in a way that we know we can stick with.
yeah, absolutely. So, I would just like to ask you now, really, where can people find you on social media? Have you got books? Have you got anything, blogs, and anything people can contact you? Or if anyone wants to speak to you, how do they get in contact with you the best way?
Yeah. I have my website, angiegarton.com. I'm on Facebook as well. Same name. I've got my membership, Finding Yourself in Menopause.
Yeah.
So if you type that into either Google or onto Facebook, you'll find me on there. There's lots of blogs and information on my website, angiegarton.com. There's information there that you can use straight away and download some helpful tips and advice. I'm on LinkedIn and some videos on YouTube as well. So some quick tips and things that have been quite helpful for a few people.
Yeah. So where would you say the best place for people to reach out to you? Like which social media platform would be best?
I'm most active on Facebook.
Okay.
Pretty much every day, pretty much.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be, send me a message on there and I will pick it up. Yeah.
That's great, Angela. It's been great chatting to you today. I think we're going to finish it there. Have you got any last words, any final tips or anything you'd like to add about the chat today?
Oh gosh, if I could stand on my soapbox and give one last, not piece of advice, because sometimes unsolicited advice is not always helpful. But if I could just make a statement, a broad statement to say that menopause, peri and postmenopause, they're not the end. It's not all downhill from here. This is us taking our transition and our step up, not down, but we've got to listen to what's going on inside of us.
Definitely. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that, Angela. I appreciate you coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, folks, that's another episode of the Racket Athlete podcast, and we'll speak to you soon.